Hi friends, Hussein is here. During the last 2 weeks, I've been searching for a way to organize the videos that I record. Eventually, I decided to create and follow a roadmap called .NET Developer Roadmap for 2023. I got inspired by the great work done by a friend of mine, Moien Tajik, and the customized version of that by Nick Chapsas. So first of all, kudos to them. It would be great if you go ahead and give a star to their repositories. I'm planning to create short videos with a few examples for each of the sections in this roadmap, but for the sake of time, I don't cover all the details. So let's go ahead and review the roadmap together. So first of all, I'm gonna cover some general development skills, including Git basics and commands, and reviewing network protocols, learn how to search for a solution on Google or Stack Overflow, for example. Then we'll review some popular data structures and algorithms and pointing out how big O notation work. And we are gonna take a look at the capabilities that ChatGPT can give us as a developer. Then I'm going to review some .NET fundamentals, including .NET Core and .NET Standard libraries, and checking some of the popular .NET CLI commands that are being used frequently. In the third step, I'm going to talk about some C# fundamentals, including data types and variables, loops and conditions, data structures, generics, link queue, and object-oriented programming fundamentals. Then I'm going to review some core software development principles, including Solid, Dry, Kiss, and Yagni. At this stage, we are equipped enough to start ASP.NET Core Basics, so we can review Web APIs, REST fundamentals, routing, middleware, filters and attributes, application settings and configurations, authentication and authorization mechanisms, minimal APIs, and dependency injection related discussions. It is always useful to get familiar with SQL fundamentals like designing a database, TCQL basics, constraints, indexes, and taking a look at stored procedures creation and usages. Then I'm gonna take a deep dive into databases, starting with relational databases and covering SQLite, Postgres, and MS SQL Server. And then we can review search engine types databases like Elasticsearch and NoSQL databases. The famous ones are Azure Cosmos DB and Amazon DynamoDB. We should also review Redis quickly. ORMs or object relational mappings make our life easy while applications are communicating with the databases. So I'm going to cover entity framework in depth, and I'm going to take a look at Dapper as well. Caching is also a useful concept, so we'll cover memory cache and distributed cache in this space. Most applications require logging, so I'm going to cover Serilog, OpenTelemetry, and log management systems like ELK Stack. Metrics and distributed tracing are also important, so I'm going to talk about OpenTelemetry, which can cover both of them together. Testing is always important. For unit testing, I'm going to cover frameworks like XUnit, mocking libraries like nsubstitute and mock, assertion libraries like Fluent Assertions. For integration testing, I'm going to cover Web Application Factory. For the rest of them, I'm not sure if I can create short videos, but if time permits, I'm going to review them quickly. Afterward, I'm going to talk about API clients and communications. So we'll cover REST communication, GraphQL with Hot Chocolate library, and gRPC. Real-time communication has its own use cases, so I'm going to talk about Signal R in this space. API documentation is always very useful, and it can easily be done with the help of OpenAPI library. For object mapping, I'm going to talk about AutoMapper and probably give you an example about Mapster. API SDK libraries are being used in different use cases, so I'm going to talk about Refit, REST-Sharp, and an interesting one called NSWAG. Task scheduling is also very important. Although it can be done natively in .NET Core with background services, I'm going to cover Hangfire library as well. It is beneficial for a developer to know about design patterns and the problems that they can solve. So I'm going to talk about CQRS, event sourcing, strategy, builder, and singleton patterns. Microservices are being widely used these days, so I'm going to cover basic concepts, cons and pros, monorepo versus polyrepo, containerization with Docker, orchestration with Kubernetes, and different communication ways between microservices here. So the biggest section here is cloud. I will start with basic concepts, introducing providers, talking about compute resources, serverless resources, storage, message bus, message broker, event streaming, API gateway, and so on. I may modify this section a little bit as we move forward. For CI/CD pipelines, I will focus on GitHub workflows and actions and Azure DevOps pipelines. There are many fantastic open source libraries out there. So I'm gonna talk about Poly, Mediate R, Fluent Validation, Benchmark.net, Swashbuckle, NodaTime, and source generators. And last but not least goes to DevOps. Here I'm gonna talk about infrastructure as code with Terraform, Azure CLI, and Bicep a little bit. So, as you noticed, there are a lot of topics here that I should cover. But before I start, it would be great if you could reflect on your opinion in the comments section below. Thank you for your attention and take care until the next one.